kind of a delay, and I like to double check that it's working before I get into it. Stream.me is up and running. Now, YouTube looks like it's up and running. Yes. So I'm live. Let's see. Close. Let's just
Ooh, check.
Nope, don't want to talk to you right now. But okay. So tonight, or whenever it is that you're seeing this, the thing that I was going to talk about is basically I was going to bring up some of the streams that Owen and Vox have talked about just in the last day or so. And the reason that I wanted to bring them up is because I think they're so important for everybody to know about. It's very important to realize what's going on in Hollywood and in different places. And it's not even, I guess let me rephrase that. It's not that important, but it is important to understand when people try to manipulate you and people try to use you. And that's what is important to understand. In coming from a Christian background, most Christians have this idea of giving people the benefit of the doubt, giving people a chance. And that's something that I think Christ taught in being charitable, in loving your neighbor, is just trust people that they're trying to do good, and until they prove you differently. Now, it's important to note that there is a difference between giving someone the benefit of the doubt and being charitable towards them, in the sense of you're not automatically judging them, and allowing someone to manipulate you. Being manipulated is not, that's when you're just a sucker. That's when you're just taken advantage of, and that's not part of charity. That's not a part of of showing love. That's just kind of being a sucker. Excuse me, I need to get a little mic thing for when I cough or something. Anyways, the thing that Owen has brought up, and he did a video just I think yesterday or 2 days ago about Steven Spielberg, and how he got famous, and how and he went into a lot of the symbolism in his movies. And I didn't know this, and a lot of this I didn't know, is how before Spielberg was famous at all, he did a shorter film. It was his first film that he recorded on, 35 millimeter film, whatever that film is that they use. I don't know. I'm not a Hollywood movie guy, but his first film that he created was a real short one that was very symbolic, but it had a lot of sexual references, sodomy references, the homosexual references, and it was in plain sight. And the thing that was very disturbing about it was there was Hollywood producers that saw that, and immediately they signed him up and signed him for this 7-film contract. Oh, hey. How's it going? Bob's Town Trees. But the thing that Owen, he pointed out, was how they latched onto this because Spielberg was so good at hiding in plain sight, hiding the things that are evil in plain sight. And one of the things that we do is we try to look for the best in people. We try to look for the good in people, and I think that's good, and that's a Christian trait that I think is important. But as I said, you gotta also understand and not be a sucker. J-Mac. Call my J-Mac. I don't know what that means. Oh, gotcha. But you gotta not be a sucker, because when you don't understand someone's motivation and they're adding in symbology, that you don't understand, that's when you get taken advantage of, and you inadvertently teach and propagate stuff that is against what you actually are interested in and against what you actually want. And so I'm going to share I'll throw in the chat right now, which I'm sure anybody who's seen this, well, maybe not, but I'm guessing they've seen his videos already. But this is the video that he just recently did on Spielberg. And as I was going through, there was a few videos that, I should probably do it over here as well. Oops. If I do it in restream.io, then it'll do it in both places at once. Okay. And there's the chat bubbles. Let's open in browser. Perfect. Okay. So, if you get a chance, take the time to watch this video. This is one of the ones that Owen did that it's solid. It's really solid. He talks about he gets into it, and one of the things that Owen, his perspective brings is he has a perspective of him since he was in Hollywood, since he was a part of that community. He has a perspective of the day-to-day and the individuals there. And then Vox, he did his stream today. He took some of the transcripts that they had made while they were making the scripts to this video, and it's really sad to see, and it's really eye-opening. The thing that really, as I was thinking about it, the thing that really kind of makes it matter for the day-to-day life, for like personal life, is it really makes a difference to realize that when someone doesn't have your best interest in mind, you need to be careful in giving them that benefit of the doubt. If you give someone the benefit of the doubt too freely, it can really hurt. It can really hurt your. Yeah, I was just watching Big Bear too. I was just watching Owen as well. But it can, when you give someone the benefit of the doubt, it really can do more damage than you want. And the reason is because trust, to be betrayed can only happen when you have trust, when you trust someone. And if you give someone the benefit of the doubt and you don't, and you're not open to the fact that they could be manipulating you or using you, then when that betrayal comes, it hurts far worse than being aware and being unclear. And like everything, you got to take things on a case-by-case basis. There are times where miscommunications happen, and you see this with Owen. He really, when he feels like betrayed or when he feels like hurt, like he really blusters and he really flies off the handle, and he people say, oh, he's spiraling and stuff, and no, it's just part of the pain that he's felt in the past. And one of these things, and this is something that I had never really experienced or understood, but I saw it with when I got to know my wife better and got to as we were getting to know each other better. One of the interesting things that happens when you have a lot of pain that you've carried around and you get over it, and then something happens and that pain just comes right back. Like it can really be damaging. Like it can hurt, and it's one of those things that you can't you can't really relate to it until you actually see it and experience it and understand it. Because when when you get betrayed by someone you love, it's it leaves it hurts emotionally. Like it's one of those scars that cuts deep. And that's one of those things where, you know, when I see Owen go spiraling, and people start to like do their thing where they start making fun and stuff, and it's like, you guys just don't get it. Like, you don't see. And you know that he's got that big heart where he's just wanting to do the best and stuff, but he's also going to stand up and fight for what he sees as right. And that's admirable. It's admirable to be in the corner and be in that place where you're vulnerable, but yet stand up and really spit in the devil's eye is what I think. I don't remember what book I was reading, but there was a book that talked about that, and it was really it really just it's a good graphic of seeing some person in on their last leg. What do? They spit in the devil's eye, you know. One of the things that I also really like that both Owen and Vox touched on was, you need to call out these bad things. You need to call them out when you see them. And that's a hard thing to do. And it's not, I say it's hard, but it's not that hard. It's just hard to get yourself to do it. There was, I remember we like, even, I was at a karate thing with my daughters. They both do karate, and there was a guy that came and sat. He moved a chair and he sat in front of. I was standing up on the side at the time, but if I were sitting where I was at, it would have been right in front of us, you know. And he was just like, man, I just wish there's a word in Romanian that we don't have the exact word. You'd call it a jerk in English, but that doesn't portray the connotation. The word is nesimțit, and they use it as a jerk, but the actual meaning is without feeling. So you could say it's like calloused or something like that, but think of calloused mixed with being a jerk. And so it's like someone without feeling. It's like they're so heartless or soulless that they're not even aware that they're a jerk, you know. Anyways, this guy, he just sat in front of us, in front of like, my dad was over sitting there, and he's like, well, should I tell him? And I didn't care. I was holding my kid, and it didn't affect me because I wasn't sitting where I was at. But it was one of those things where it's like, well, do we tell this guy that he's sitting 2 feet in front of us, and he moved a chair specifically in front of us, and it's like, well, are you intentionally being in the way? Are you intentionally just being a pain? Or, you know, and it's awkward to tell someone to call someone out when they're being a jerk. It's a kind of an awkward thing for most people. Unless I don't know about most people. For me, it is. But it's an important thing. It's one of those things that sometimes you really have to stand up, and you have to yell, and you have to get in someone's face. And I told my buddy this. I was with one of my buddies, and the local high school that we went to, it had gotten redone. They'd made a new floor, and they'd made this big training facility and stuff like that. And we were going through to they had this, I don't know what you call it, an open house, where you go, and the whole community was invited to go and walk through this after the construction was done. And my buddy, he's pretty upfront and in your face. He doesn't have a problem with being that guy that calls you out. And we were there, and one of the guys that he was like a friend. It was a small community, and so he was kind of like a friend when the family knew him, but he was the vice principal of the school. And he was the one that was giving me and my buddy this tour thing. And my buddy was just going at him like, oh, why did we pay for this? My taxes are paying for this. Why are we doing that? Why did you have to do that? What is this benefit? Why is this? And he was really going at him. And I was like embarrassed. I was like, oh man, come on. Like, just let him be. Like, he's doing his job, you know? And I was not, I was not confrontational at all. And this is several years ago. But, I, after time, like, I look back on that and I look back, I wasn't living in the town at the time. Well, I'm still not, but so I didn't have skin in the game. So I was kind of like it was awkward for me in that position. But my buddy was really pretty ticked off about how the taxes had been raised and how they created this huge facility for indoor training and indoor field house. But it was not accessible to the public because it was for the high school kids, and I think it was like a $500,000. I don't know. I don't remember how expensive it was, but it was a big, expensive building. And he was like, "Why can't we get access to this? Why can't my wife come and do her jogs here in the winter? You know, or you know." And he was going at this guy, and after a few years after I was thinking about it, I was talking to my buddy and I was just like, man, I'm sorry that I was awkward in that stage, that I was trying to be the, okay, let's settle down. I don't remember saying anything, but I remember being embarrassed. And I was like, dude, I'm sorry I was embarrassed. I was a wuss. And that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can say, oh, I didn't have any skin in the game, which was true. I wasn't living in the town. The taxes didn't affect me. But also that was my buddy that was being affected, and I didn't stop him from saying what he was saying, so I didn't get in his way or anything, but I definitely didn't back him up or anything. I was pretty impartial to it. And so I don't know, one of those things that you have to really take, you have to practice almost, is being confrontational, is being able to tell someone when they're being a jerk. And that's something that I don't know, I think that it's something that you can definitely learn how to do, and you can learn how to express your displeasure in ways that aren't necessarily bad, but yet are clear and concise. That really didn't have much to do with Spielberg or Hollywood, but I guess that was the lesson that made me think of like what you can do for in your real life settings. The thing that was really interesting with this Hollywood stuff is how predominant pedophilia and abuse happens in Hollywood. I didn't know this, but the guy Biff in Back to the Future, that guy, he refused to do one of the movies. Like, he refused to continue doing movies with them because he knew that some of these guys were pedophiles, and he was like, no, I'm not doing that. And they had to take him to court and forced him to do those films. It was either the third one or maybe the second one, I don't remember. Owen mentioned that, and they knew already what was the evils that were going on. Owen goes into, in that film, or in that video, Owen goes into the symbolism, how, and this is one of the things that also I thought was really eye-opening, is how you think of the stuff that you take pride in, or the stuff that you take pleasure in, and like, oh yeah, I did a good job, or oh, that was a good thing. Those things of like when you help someone and you get away with it without being seen or something, and it's like, yeah, that felt good. Some of the symbology that they use in like E.T. and in like Jurassic Park and some of these movies that Spielberg has made, the symbology is he gets that high of like, oh, I got away with it, like I was showing this symbology without them even knowing. And it's one of those things where you can't just let it stand. You don't want to just continue to support it. It's one of those things you can't unsee. And Vox, he explained and he pointed out how I should post this video of Vox's real quick. Where's my... There it is. Paste. Sweet. But Vox, he pointed out how one of the reasons that you have these ways of talking that are unclear is you have these groupings, whether it's racial, whether it's religious, whether it's organizational. You have anybody who's not in the majority, they are naturally incentivized to not explain their thinking and to not make everything clear. And perhaps it's not the majority, perhaps that's cultural, but either way, there are groups of people who are incentivized not to tell exactly what they mean, not to say what they mean, whether that's to get away with doing wrongdoing and not being called out for it, whether that's to avoid being persecuted, as the Christians were when Christianity was being persecuted as it was young, whether it's or like slavery when that was going on here in, like, there's always groupings of people who are not going to be that are going to try and hide their actual intentions. You see that with politicians all the time. But with Spielberg, he does a lot of symbology of stuff that's very evil. And yeah, there's a satanic essence to it, of where there's actual worship of the devil, but there's also a trying to get things that are like pedophilia to be more mainstream, trying to get things like, before, we've recently been watching Mrs. Doubtfire. We ended up getting that, and my kids have been watching it, and I've been when we're in the car or whatever, and I'll hear it and I'll be listening and I'll be like, what is going on here? And there was so much stuff in that movie that was like, man, there's some real messed up stuff. And this was before it was popular to have gay people in a movie for kids, and before it was popular to have cross-dressing and stuff like that. This was like before the whole LGBTQ whatever, I don't know all the acronyms. Before all of this movement was so mainstream, and I was like, the kids love it because Robin Williams is a fantastic what do you call him? He's funny. The kids, they enjoy it, but it's like, oh, it makes me sick a little bit to see it, some of the stuff that's portrayed in that movie. And another one, that's one where it's like somebody was pleased with how much they were able to get away with in showing without being caught. And that idea of that mindset of being happy that you got away with something that you weren't caught with. I mean, you see the exact same thing with Vox when he broke down Fight Club, and how it was a very, very homosexual. It was very it was a gay movie, and it was about gay people and the gay underworld. And I've never seen it, and so it didn't really affect me that much, but it was interesting how you would have people who absolutely loved it, that thought it was this testosterone filled, like fighting, underground fighting things. But then you also have the groups of people that were gay, and they were really like, they loved it for totally different reasons, and they would laugh at the people who didn't understand what it was actually about. And it's one of those things, you don't want to be a sucker. You don't want to be a sucker. Well, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna do a bit of programming next. Probably not on stream. I might hop on stream after and show what I did, but I'll be making a game loop. The best game loop in the world. Rock the party. Now I gotta figure out where to stop the stream. Goodbye, everybody.